This is Mid-Atlantic Women in Agriculture's Wednesday webinar, Basics of Creating and Using Infographics. Christy is our presenter, and she has provided her email address for any follow-up questions.
So this is our sponsor screen. The webinar is a Wednesday webinar through Mid-Atlantic Women in Agriculture, and we do this as often on Wednesdays as possible. There's a bunch of different people who do the webinars, and Michelle Walford, who is a colleague of mine with the University of Delaware, she does them as well, and she does really great ones. So please do go to their website and look through their archive for a variety of different webinars that you can access. They're on mobile applications, on social media, on a variety of things. You can see the next one that's coming up is in 2 weeks, and it's on farm diversification. So there's just a variety of things. I'm a communication specialist at the University of Delaware. My name is Christy, and so I do the social media and blog and now infographic ones. But the last one I did was on Prezi, which ended up being pretty fun too. So thank you to all of the sponsors that helped make this possible. Again, this session is all about infographics, and I just put on here, it's information that catches their eye. So we all provide a variety of really amazing content to people all the time. That's just one of the things that we're able to do, which is fantastic. I just want to let you know that Lucy has just said that for her, the chat option is in the upper right corner. So thank you, Lucy, for letting us know about that. Okay, so, but infographics are something that you're scrolling through social media, or you're scrolling through your news feed and something catches your eye, and usually that is what makes you go looking for more information. A lot of the times they're built into infographics for that purpose. It catches your eye. So when I was an undergrad at UD, one of my favorite teachers, it was educational technology was the class, and he told us right off the bat that he wanted all of his lectures to be a form of edutainment, and that stayed with me because I do think education should be entertaining, and I feel that infographics are a way to do that. I feel that they're entertaining because they're aesthetically pleasing. They can be formatted in a way that's organized to make you feel good about what you're reading, to make it more understandable for you, and therefore you're more likely to remember what you're seeing. So I just think that they are entertaining and educational, but they also enhance things. So you might be working with a communication specialist or a marketer or somebody in PR at your organization, and you want to talk to them about something pretty complex, whether it's a new form of irrigation or a new form of insecticide or some other new thing in agriculture, or a report that you've been working on for a year and you have pages and pages of data, but that's a little cumbersome, it's a little hard to take in, and you want to make sure that you can reach the broadest audience. Having that article and that report in conjunction with an infographic can go a really long way in making sure everyone who sees it can really understand it and find it useful. So Springboard PR is where I got this little clip art piece, but basically it's what I just said. The theory is that you are going to stop people from just scrolling when they see something that appeals. So I'm going to get into a little bit more on the visual statistics and what people have learned, and I have all the sources if you're ever interested in reading the bigger reports. But basically a lot of people are using their mobile phones now, and so you have a very short time. What is that, like 400 pixels, 4 inches of time in which to actually get their attention, and there are so many competing media outlets out there, and if you want yours to be the one that they stop at, then on top of having great content, you have to have something that draws them in. So infographics are a way to do that. Also, as my mom has always taught me, sharing is caring, and infographics are very shareable. So when you think about if Like if you use Pinterest, if you use Facebook, if you use Twitter, what are the things that you retweet? What are the things that you comment on and share? What are the things that you're more likely to repin or to email to somebody, hey, I saw this in the news today, I thought you might like it? Is it more likely for it to be something, oh, close that out for you guys. Sorry about that. Is it more likely for you to be sharing something that's just text, that's just a headline and a quick paragraph, or is there a thumbnail or a photo that goes along with that? Usually, in my case, there is some sort of visual. So infographics allow you to do both. You want to share it with your child, or you want to share it with your colleague or your supervisor. You want to share it with a crap producer, and you want it to be something that is valuable to them. But you want to make sure they open it, right? So having the visual really goes a long way. So some specifics. At this URL here at the bottom under that will bring up the larger infographic here. I just cut up a piece of it for you. But these are just some specific uses. So a lot of the time in education and also with extension, we do surveys, right? We want to gauge whether or not someone needs information or whether we were able to teach information. Did they learn something? Did it make an impact on them? Did it change their behavior? So that's all really important data, and we can get it in a survey and have it in a big spreadsheet. But what are you doing with that data afterward? So infographics can provide a visual way to show the most important parts of the data you collected. So that's one reason, and that's a really valuable reason I feel in many higher education institutions and also with cooperative extension. That would be a really valuable way to display your results. Also, if you want to compare a before and after. So you have a 12-week session on personal finance. People go in, they fill out a survey. People leave after 12 weeks, they fill out a survey. They can tell you they went in, not knowing how to balance their checkbook or something like that. And I don't know if people still have checkbooks, but and then at the end, they leave feeling so much more confident based on the different things you're able to teach them. So you in an infographic can show those comparisons. And I'm going to give you a bunch of examples on this in just a bit. Also, as I've already said, you can simplify complex content. So I work with a communication specialist who is a writer. I'm a graphic-y web person. He is a very technical, scientific writer, and I so much value what he writes because it teaches me something every time. But there are, and I will admit, oftentimes when I say, I have no idea what this means. Can you break it down for me? So he often is able to say, oh, well, this means this, or if you consider this plant protein, it could be considered a door in that plant, so it opens and closes. So then in my head, I'm picturing a leaf of a plant, and I'm picturing, magnifying it and zooming in and having a specific protein named and having it look like a door or be next to an icon that explains to me this opens and closes something. So an infographic can do that. It can allow you to provide a visual way of understanding something that in just plain text didn't make sense, at least not to a wider audience who's not familiar with that type of science. Another use for infographics is on timelines or to show a process. And there are actually infographic makers that are specific to creating timelines. And so they allow you to input images and a headline, and in fields that say this happened on this day, this happened on this day, and then in the end it exports this great big long timeline for you. So it shows where you started and where you ended in a visual way. Okay, so this is just another thing. Content with visual gets 94% more total views, and then it explains what people are retaining. People retain 80% of what they see. For me, this is incredibly true. Just think about it in terms of how you drive somewhere. A lot of people read maps, right? I can read a map, thank goodness, but there are so many times when I'm driving somewhere and I'm saying, okay, I know I need to turn at that McDonald's on the corner. So for me, I know what highway I'm on, but I'm remembering where I'm going based on landmarks, which is not good when that McDonald's disappears, but it explains how my brain works. And according to a lot of research, a lot of people's brains work that way. So if there are less paragraphs and very strong supportive data that's highlighted, so here you see the 94% is the biggest part of this image. So you might end up, oh, we have a raised hand here. Oh, Shannon, you raised your hand. I'm not sure. Did you have something to chat about? I'm gonna have to keep my chat pod open. It keeps closing. Okay, we have multiple raised hands here. Maybe it means that you are agreeing that you navigate by landmarks. I'm not sure. Please feel free to fill in the chat if you have any questions. So this is just another thing to understand how you can capture very key elements of your content and your data is by highlighting something bigger. So here's another thing. We talked about how much information is retained, but there's also information that says 90% comes to the brain through a visual feel. And you have all your senses, but visually a lot of content comes to you that way. So using infographics allows you to just say, hey, you really want to read this, you really want to read this, there's 90% of something. And then people are going to click on it and say, oh, 90% of information, they see that big number, they want to know 100%, they want to know 40%. 13 million people, what? So in this instance on this particular infographic, it says 13 million people have searched for infographic on Google. That's a huge number. In addition, and also this source, that URL is there, and I can send you all these URLs if you're interested. But high quality infographics are 30 times more likely to be read than text articles, 30 times. And so in this infographic, you can see that. It has the word text articles, it has the word infographic, and it shows you how vast 30 times more likely is. And so they highlighted 30 times more likely in the same color as the icon they used to visualize that data. Okay, so here's a little bit more on the science. This actually came from an anatomy and physiology book, and this infographic is available as well, and I'll provide you the source for that too, but I wanted to show you that it is a physical thing. 70% of all your sensory receptors are visual. They're in your eyes. 70%. So your body is built to take in content in a visual way. And that is why hands-on learning is so important for people. It's the same thing when you're reading content and when you're reaching out to people. When they can understand something and they're involved in something, they're hearing it, they're seeing it, they're reading it, they're remembering it. I love my comics, but one thing to really pay attention to, and it's hard because I am one of the people who loves fonts. I have a whole collection of fonts. I don't know that I'll ever use 90% of the fonts that I've collected, but if you are going to be creating something, whether it's an infographic or a poster or a flyer or something on a website, please, please, please use a font that people can read, and think about the colors you're using. Don't use 25 different colors. Don't use colors that clash with each other. Don't use yellow font on top of a green background that is going to make people squint and turn off their computer. So just be cognizant of the design. And as we go through the examples I'm going to provide, I'll show you the ones that work the best have a really consistent color palette. Okay. So when designing infographics, please provide limited copy. This is the United Nations. I don't want to be hard on the United Nations. We have a chat thing from here. For accessibility, for those that are colorblind, colors should be 1:4 ratio. Yes, thank you so much. And there are accessibility tools that will allow you to see whether or not the different colors work together for people who are visually impaired. There are tools that do that for you, and there's plenty of research out there because we've always thought about that. And even in this particular instance, my presentation with the white on the blue, it's harder to read the white on the blue in the center when the gradient becomes lighter. So there are definite things to think about, and accessibility is definitely a very important one. So thank you, Erin, for that comment. So in this infographic is what it was called. It shows an organizational chart. I can see that it's showing the different members of a security council of the General Assembly, what they do, who's on them, what committees and commissions. However, this infographic is very confusing. There are arrows that overlap each other. There's so much content. Most of the font is all the same size. Some of it's bolded. Some of it's bolded headings, some of it's bolded acronyms. You know, it's not consistent. The color palette's consistent, but there are no visuals. This infographic has no visuals other than these arrows, and to me, it's just not very well done. In fact, I feel that it would have been more beneficial to either create this as a longer infographic that better breaks up the different areas that they're talking about, or multiple infographics. If you want to talk about the International Court of Justice, which has a variety of different agencies involved, make that its own infographic. Because right now, as it is, this is confusing to look through. So here's another one who I find a very confusing infographic. I know that it's trying to say how long someone stays online, and wants to show how long someone stays online on a variety of platforms. But this is a pie chart, and all of the slices are exactly the same size, but they all have different number values. So that doesn't compute in my head. You know, that's causing a battle in my brain. I don't understand. I do like the premise behind it, and I like that they sort of made it look like the movie Gone in 60 Seconds or the movie Fast and Furious with their font, and the way that it looks sort of like the dashboard of a car. You know, I like that creative design of it, and I know that this probably took them some time to create. However, in terms of a lasting effect, I would not retain what I'm reading on this infographic right now because it does not visually make sense to me. So just thinking about making your ending infographic something that's easy to scan. So when you are thinking about creating an infographic, the first thing you need to do is find your focus. Are you going to be creating an infographic on your organization, on a specific program, on a nonprofit you volunteer for, on why someone should donate at a fundraiser? Are you going to create something on a different event you're getting ready to show? Master gardeners, master food educators. What do they do? What's their mission, their goal, and what is their impact? So find your focus and then know your data. So we talked about this a little bit briefly already, but you want to know the data that you're working with, and you need it to be supportive of your focus. So if you do have a survey, don't worry about using every single result on that survey. We all know how statistics work. We don't ever see the statistics in their raw format because, one, it might not make sense, and two, it might not show what we need it to show. So pick out the highlights. Pick out 10 different pieces of data and be able to show them in a visual way. So we're going to actually look at ideas about that, but if you know your data and know your focus in the very, very beginning, you're going to be able to create something that has a clear storyline. It's going to be organized. People are going to be able to read it, whether it's horizontal or vertical. They're going to do left to right, top to bottom. They're going to see the numbers. They're going to know what order this goes in. So that's incredibly important. Also, have a very strong title because it's the first thing people will see. So one thing is you want it to be a strong title, but you don't want it to tell them your end thing. So you don't want your title to say 90% of our customers enjoy our some type of apple. You want to say 90% of our customers enjoy, and then say dot, 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 or something like that. You need them to be able to continue reading. So I am not a writer. I am not the best in creating a strong title, but it is incredibly important. And so that is going to be key when you find your focus. Write down different titles, 3 or 4 different titles that you think will go best. When you're finished creating your infographic, one of those will fit, I promise. So then also think about the format. Is this going to be a vertical one or a horizontal one? Is it going to be a square? Is it going to be a timeline? Is it going to be different steps of a process? Because then that's either going to be horizontal or vertical, but long. It's going to be squared off in sections. So it has to be organized. So create an outline, just like when you're writing a paper or starting a presentation. You have an outline. You know where you want to start. You know where you want to end, and you pick up all the pieces in the middle of how you think it will best be explained to somebody. So here is how to best represent data. And a lot of this is very common sense, so I'm sure all of it is going to make sense to you, and it's not really one of those aha moments. It's a, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now that you say that does make sense. So here you have a percentage point. It's 1 percentage point. There's nothing else to compare it to in this particular image, but it is bolder, it is brighter, it is the biggest part of that square. Coffee represents 75% of caffeine consumed in the United States. You've got your little pie chart icon in the back, but that's not even the most important part of that image. Most important part is the 75%. It's what you will read first. So the rule of thumb is that a visual should take readers 10 seconds or less to understand. So in this case, it does. The percent of teens who most often use, and then we have all of the variety of icons. Those are social media icons. People might not know that the V stands for Vine. People might not know that that ghost is a Snapchat icon. So this might have to come with a little bit more explanation. It depends who your audience is. Teens will know what this means. So they wouldn't need the explanation. But if you're giving this to their grandparents, they might not know these icons. They likely won't know that that's an Instagram icon. So it will need a key of some sort. Oh, Lucy has a question. So I cut this out of a larger coffee infographic. The ampersand in the coffee infographic is just a piece of one. So actually the and is because it was connected to another element. But it's not needed if you take this as just one small infographic square. If this were meant to be a thumbnail somewhere, we would capitalize the C and remove that ampersand for sure. Sorry about that. Yeah, this, and also with this percent of teens who most often use, this was also snipped out of something else. But that's one thing to think about. If it's taken into a different context, will people understand it? And in many cases, we know what happens when you take something out of context. It is interpreted in ways that you never would have even imagined. So that does definitely happen. But in terms of design, think about what you're using. If data is changing over time, you're often going to use a line graph, right? If you want to show percentages compared to each other, you might try this bar graph, like percent of teens who most often use those platforms. If you want to convey one big important number, you might just have it like this coffee thing. Mine is the ampersand. The big important number is definitely the thing that draws your attention first. So now we're going to get into some examples, and these are very small on the screen, but when I'm done this PowerPoint, I'm going to open up my browser, and we're going to look at others more closely, including a tool that I use. So this is an infographic from a place called Ultimate Mats, and it talks about posture. So as you can see, it has a color palette that's consistent throughout. And there's that seafoam green color, navy blue, and that coral color. It's consistent throughout the whole thing. There is repeatable graphics, so those people that are showing their posture, they're in more than one section of this infographic. the background that looks like a notepad with tabs, it's in more than one section, so it's repeatable, but it's still very important and doesn't take away from the information. So I just want to stress that is you don't have to have 50 different icons on your infographic. If the same one can be used in more than one place, use it in more than one place. Infographics are, it's okay to have repeatable graphics because it makes people more comfortable. They recognize it. They say, oh, okay, I know what this means. This is going to have something to do with energy consumption. I don't know what the icon will be, but I get my point. And then also, the visuals break up each section in this infographic. So there is, that notepad has a bunch of content on it, but it isn't taking up that entire square. There's also that headline or subheading rather, a very brief description, and then the graphic illustrations, which are showing you bad posture versus good posture. And then there is one part that just has the percentages of something. I can't even read it here, but users who have standing desks report feeling 87% more energized. So these are large percentages. They're not going to show you one that says, well, 8% of users prefer standing desks because. They're not going to do that. That's not going to sell anybody on using standing desk, right? So that might be a statistic that they grabbed out of a survey or a verbal report from someone, but it's not a selling point. So they didn't use it. They used the ones that were all really valuable. 66% more productive, 62% happier, 87% more energized. Those are things that are selling points for this particular infographic. So this one has a lot of text on it, but I do like it because it shows things that I appreciate, the visual breakups in each section, the icons and in the illustrations. So you have 3 columns in most of this infographic, which is easy to follow, and it shows the breakdown of the different things. When you read down and you see green growth opportunities, you have the description, and then you have a breakdown in the 3 columns. This infographic goes on further. I cut it down to fit into this PowerPoint, but you could Google inclusive green growth and find this full infographic. It's very, very long, but I wanted to show the color palette. So the color palette makes sense, right? We have those greens and the beiges and the blues, and it all works together. It's not highly contrastable. It fits together, excuse me. It has consistent fonts. There are not 30 different fonts on this. You know, there's that very readable font that's either bolded or not bolded. It makes sense, right? You're going to be confused if you have too many different fonts on something, and you won't know, well, in the hierarchy of what's important, of what I should be prioritizing on this infographic, you won't know that if it's all in different fonts. Here, it's very clear, inclusive green growth is the main title. Why green growth? That's a subtitle. Green growth opportunities, subtitle. Underneath that, density, efficiency, transport, those are a part of the hierarchy of green growth opportunities. So designing it provides clues on what's most important and where the person who designed it wants you to go with your eye and what they want you to learn next. So this one does not have many visuals, but for people who feel a little daunted by the very, very long infographics and all that entails, this one's square. There was nothing else to it. I didn't cut anything out. This is exactly what you get when you look at this infographic. It has one visual. The only thing that's important to these people were that you knew that they were talking about Coca-Cola, because they were sort of not sharing good news about Coca-Cola. But this infographic was from Renegade Pharmacists. It went viral. Millions and millions of people saw it. And it caused a little bit of damage for Coca-Cola because it was able to show people in 7 steps what drinking Coca-Cola can do to your body. So here it is square, so it's shorter, it's concise. There's a color palette. You know, every heading's the same color. Every number is the same color. It's the same font. There's brief text blurbs. I'm sure that they could have provided way more content at each number here, but they didn't. They chose the most important 2 sentences, 1 or 2 sentences. And there's a clear timeline. You start with 1, you end in 7, you know? So it's very easy to understand this infographic. This one's from Canada. This is the full infographic. I wanted to be able to show an agriculture example, but when I pulled this up, I had some things to pick about it. I don't fully understand the focus here. I can see that they're talking about agriculture in Canada as a whole, but it doesn't really go in any sort of order. I mean, you get to the bottom corner and it says #1 producer of canola in the world. Where did that come from? You know, like you start with 98% of farms are family farms, and you end with Canada being the #1 producer of canola. So I just feel they could have focused this a little bit more, or perhaps broken it down into a longer infographic, or made it a series of different pieces of agriculture in Canada. So they could have had one on beef, they could have had one on family farms, they could have had one on water. They could have just created an entire series of smaller infographics rather than putting it all onto one image and making it less impactful. But it does have a clear color palette, and I wanted to show here, they didn't use many icons, but they did use a really beautiful photo as their backdrop. So that is something you can do as well. If you want to show irrigation on your farm in an infographic, and you take a picture that's just so beautiful of a field that has irrigation, you know, pipes already in it, and has a sunset or something happening, and you know, someone working in the field, you can use that as a background and then overlay your information in different areas with arrows or with different squares, and make that the visual that grabs people. So I love this one. I find this one to be very educational. Again, it has a consistent color palette. It uses consistent fonts. We can right away see the numbers that they want you to draw into, the 9 million people by 2050, you know, 9 billion, excuse me, the 25,000 gallons of available soil water per acre. Your eye is drawn to those numbers because 1, they're all the same color, 2, they're bolder, and 3, they're bigger. So the headings, science of soil, what's underneath, what it does, those are also showing you the information you're going to read here is about science of soil. The information you're going to read here is on what it does. So it has a clear focus. I like the illustration in the background, starting off with the greenery at the top and then breaking it down into the levels of soil. I think that you could do a lot with something like this. I like the little worm. Okay, so another example, Save the Bees. This is all illustrations. It doesn't have real pictures of bees or real pictures of honeycomb, which probably would have been a good effect for it, but this is all illustrations. It has a very clear focus right from the beginning. It has a consistent color palette, and again, the numbers are very, very big. So you have this little bee here who's carrying a knapsack. He's lost. 40% loss of honeybees in the U.S. alone. That's a pretty startling number. So you have the bigger cutoff here, and then to the right of that image is the full long infographic. So if you were to go to that on a computer, it would be, you'd have to scroll down. So you see, you would be scrolling down, you would see since the late 1990s. Then you would scroll down and you would see 40%. You would scroll down and you would see so what. And so in this instance, it sort of has a timeline effect to it. This is what was happening, this is what's happening now, and what are you going to do about it? So it ends with the call to action. What can you do about it? So I feel that that's a very effective and visually appealing infographic. And you could probably print this out on a poster printer or print it out onto 4 different pieces and put it up in a classroom. It's something that I feel people could learn from, and it's an effective tool. Okay, speaking of tools, let's talk about different tools that you can use to create your own infographics. Because looking at all the pretty examples really isn't going to take you anywhere if you don't know how to do it yourself, right? And I want to promise you, there are so many templates out there that make it really, really easy. So if you don't want to start from scratch, you don't have to. But once you tinker and get into it, you might want to. So Vengage is the first one I started using. I was part of a referendum campaign a couple times actually with my kids' school district. I created infographics for them using Vengage. Now, you can make, when I started using it, it didn't have reports and posters and promotions. It was just infographics. Now they have a variety of things you can start building with. The downside to using Vengage, even though it's my favorite, is you cannot download anything you create until you're paying $20 a month. So $20 a month, you can cancel it after a month if it's a one-stop, I need to download, and then I'm not going to ever create another thing. What you can do is share it with people online. So if you don't need to download it and send it to anybody, you're just going to be posting it on social media, you don't need to pay the $20 a month. You can share it straight from Vengage, which is great. Right off the bat, there are lots of images, lots of fonts, and multiple free templates that you can use. Oh, we have a chat pod here. Oops. Does UD have a subscription to Vengage for employees to use? Nancy, Catherine Hamrick, my new supervisor that started, she did get a subscription for Vengage for employees to use. I don't think I have the password and email for it right now, but I do know that Extension has used it. At least the Newcastle County office has used it. I don't think that they have given out anything from it yet, but that they were able to log in and use it, and it is a subscription, so you can download. So you could ask Catherine about that, or I can ask and let you know. And then Erin, can you upload your own photos like logos? Yes. So with the free version, you can upload, I think it's 10 images. You can upload and delete and upload and delete, so you can get around the limitation there. But yes, you can upload your own photos and logos. So, okay, Nancy, I will. I'm going to jot that down. I'll let you know because I think it would be very, very valuable for Extension. There are other tools you can tinker with that are free that don't require this too, and I'm going to show you some of those also because there's a upside and a downside to pretty much all of the tools, but the upside is the best. I mean, really, they're only going to continue making these tools more versatile because people are using them so much, and everybody's using them. Smashing Magazine, big organizations are using them. So this one's called Easel, easel.ly. This is the free version gives you it's more limited. There are free templates, but they're restricted on the colors. Like you can't change some of the colors. But this one has a timeline and a resume template, which the Vengage one did not. So that's a new thing that actually I learned while I was creating this presentation is that younger people are creating their resumes in the form of an infographic now, which when you think about it, makes perfect sense. It's going to make your resume stand out, and it's going to allow you to highlight the coolest parts of yourself, in a visual way. So there are tools, actually you'll see one in this presentation, specifically for creating an infographic for a resume. But as for Easily, there is a premium upgrade available for this. It's about the same cost. And when you do upgrade, you move from having 60 free images available to you to thousands and thousands. So upgrading would be pretty useful with this particular tool. Here's the resume one. Visualize Me. So this allows people to create a resume of themselves in an infographic format. So you can show, instead of having 3 bullets that show your education, you can, if you have high school, college, master's, doctorate, you could show that in a timeline. And for the different skills that you might have, you can show that with icons. So Visualize Me is specifically for creating infographic resumes. So that was new to me when creating this presentation, and I have not tried it. But I see that it has a sign-in with LinkedIn, and I wonder if it can somehow import your information from LinkedIn, because that would make things probably a lot easier. That would be pretty interesting to try, but I will admit I did not try it. This was definitely new to me. Infogram is, I feel like this would be infographics for something very business oriented. So if you needed to provide an infographic for a statistical report or an analytical report at the end of the year, Infogram would be really great. But again, with this, there's a free version, but it's very limiting, and it does not give you the templates with the free version. You get to start with a blank slate. But the great thing about this one is it does offer a lot of documentation. So you might be able to go to this one, learn a little bit about infographics, and then go use another one. This one's fairly new, so I'm sure they're going to be adding to it, but it does have a lot of the, like you can see in this example, Politico used it. So it's definitely more statistical, business-minded tool. PictoChart, this is the one I'm going to show you when I'm done this PowerPoint. PictoChart has a free version and a premium version, but it has discounts for education and for nonprofits, which is fantastic. I run a nonprofit in addition to working full-time at UD. So it was helpful for me to know that this particular tool offered discounts for both. This has not as many free templates as Venngage did. So Venngage has more free templates, but this has a lot of different icons, I guess, icons and shapes and visuals built in. So there are stock photos built in that, you know, when you go to Google Images and you're Googling for a stock photo now and you have to worry about the copyright, if that photo is allowed to be used again, do you need to source it, do you need to credit it? And PictoChart, the stock photos that they include are all part of it. You don't have to worry about the copyright. So that's useful to know. Now I say thank you. Do you have any questions? I'm going to pull up the chat pod if you have any questions. If you don't, we can go straight into sharing the tool and some of the, I want to show you one of the interactive elements too. So chat pod, very informative. I'm glad. I do, if there aren't any questions about this presentation, I do want to jump into, because we're running out of time, I'm going to jump into just showing you PictoChart as you're logged in. Canva is another alternative, very easy to use. Barb says Canva. Do you mean Canva? I've used Canva. Yeah. Barb says Canva, and I have used Canva. I've not used it for infographic creation, but I have used it for social media graphic creation, where I pull out a block quote in somebody's article and use that. And we have another person, Canva. Canva does have a lot of free options. I do use Canva I've used it for Instagram, I've used it for Twitter, I've used it for Facebook for creating different things for those social media networks to add a visual to something that's not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily have a picture to go with it. So I agree, Canva is great and it does have a free option. Real quick, I want to share with you from my browser. Okay, let me close this. Let me minimize that. Okay, so this one is, I'm a fan of Miles Davis. This is an interactive infographic online. And it allows you to sort of click through and see, I hope you can see the screens. I'm clicking on it, it's going through sort of like a timeline. So this is one of the tools that you can download. It's not necessarily free, but it allows you to create these awesome timelines. So if you're browser-based and you don't need to have a printout version, I mean, this is just incredible to see all of the different things that Miles Davis participated in every show over time. It's just so cool. So you can click on the little bubbles, you can click on the little timelines. I love it. To move. Okay, so Erin has used Visualize Me with LinkedIn, and she says it took 10 seconds to move everything out over. That's incredible. I mean, I'm not currently looking for a job. I'm very happy with my job, but oh, there's the music. Should I be looking for a job? I definitely think I would use a tool like that. So we've done the Miles Davis one. That's the interactive one. This one is Corn. Very, very small here. Here, it was a did you know, 1% of corn grown in the U.S. is sweet corn, and then it explains what field corn is. Very, very simple. One icon, simple color palette, simple font, one teeny tiny little chart that shows this tiny sliver of what the sweet corn is for human consumption. So I feel like that as an infographic is incredibly simple, but pretty impactful. Another one here, this Discover Dairy Foods. This one's longer. I'm scrolling through it for you. This was out of California from their Dairy Council. But it just talks about milk, dairy products. I like how it has this visualization, 1 serving of cheese equals 4 diced sized cubes. I like that visualization. I think people would be able to understand that. So I think that's great. Then it talks about yogurt, the amino acids in yogurt, the full serving of it. So I think that's a really valuable infographic. It would be perfect for somebody in family and consumer sciences. I'm sure that you could create an infographic similar to this with vegetables or fruits, or even on herbs in the garden, what you can use them for, and have different pictures and bullets. I think that would be pretty valuable. And then really quickly, since I know we're running out of time, this is PictoChart. I'm already signed in, so you can see it allows you to look at free templates. These are the free ones. There's quite a few there. And then there's the professional ones that you can upgrade to use. Obviously, there's going to be way more professional ones. But sometimes scrolling through, you can get an idea of what you can make, like this grow poster for an event or this Halloween thing for an event. You don't have to buy it. You can just see it and then create it yourself. So sometimes it just is good for inspiring. And then when you're signed in, across the top, it has my saved PictoCharts. So I just put together something really quickly for Braden the other day, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like when you go in. So it's loading for you. So here is what it looks like. It allowed me to upload his pictures. This one is a longer infographic. You can see it shows our mission. It had, I'm going to click on the box. You can click in it. Very, very easy to make changes. It's just like using a Word document or using Outlook. And you drag and drop pictures in. These little icons with the vegetables and fruits, they were free to use with the PictoChart. It was just part of it. And scroll down. If you see on the right side here, it says where. So we started with hello, which is our mission. Where is the different places that we help out. And then how, and then I split it into 3 different things, the different things he does. So he promotes through advocacy, he raises awareness and money, and he provides healthy snacks to people. And then I gave our specifics, how many bags he's given out, how many volunteers he's recruited, and how much money he's raised. So it's just the 3 sections. Starts off with what we are, what our mission is, where we help out, and how we do it. Very, very simple. I think that there are a lot of organizations and programs that exist in which you could use a tool like this and very easily come up with an infographic. This did not take long to do. It took like 30 minutes. It was pretty easy. On the left-hand side here, you see icons. They're sorted by category, but you can also search. So I searched for fruit. And it gave me all of the different icons of fruit available for me to use. You click on it, click where you want it, you click on it, and blop, you have a little avocado. I don't need that avocado, so I click delete. And then you save it. And then in Venngage, you have to be upgraded to be able to download it, but in PictoChart, you can do it for free. So you can see here, in PictoChart, it allows me to do original or medium. If I want to download a PDF or a high-res version, I do have to upgrade. But if I'm just sharing this on his website or on his social media, downloading it as an original or media image is perfect. And this didn't cost any money to our nonprofit. They do have a nonprofit discount, as I mentioned, but this was free to do. And it looks nice. You know, it's simple.
Thank you for watching our archived presentation of our Wednesday webinar. If you would like to see more archived Wednesday webinars, please visit our YouTube channel. Or to find a schedule of upcoming live webinars, visit our website,